Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Andre Russo, and you are listening to RC After Hours podcast, episode number 86. Yes, I think it's 86. I really should check my notes. But we've got a guest tonight. We have a guest who has been... I've been actually really excited to get him on the channel and on the show and everything. And without further ado, I'm going to pull our guest this evening onto the screen, make sure his microphone is live. There he is there. And for those who don't know, this is Ali. Ali works for Hangar 9, Horizon Hobby, and we're going to put him into the hot seat tonight, ask him a whole slew of questions. So if anybody listening live this evening wants to pose a question, hold them. We'll get through some stuff. I want to, find out a little bit more about Ali and his background and everything. And by all means, think of your questions, and we'll have some fun, and we'll find out a little bit about his history and everything. So, good evening, Ali. Welcome to the show. And I guess for our listeners, if you could give them that little opening shot about who you are and what you do, and we'll take it from there.
Hi, Andre. Hello, everybody. Thank you for having me. My name is Ali Machinchy. I am the lead product developer for Hangar 9, Horizon Hobby's Balsa wood and giant scale brand. I am a lifelong aero modeler. I started flying, my first solo RC flight was when I was 3, so that's 42 years ago. So never left, never done the hiatus in the teenage years. I carried on all the way through, and it turned into a job. I studied a marketing degree in London. Once I graduated from university with that degree, I opened it was a singular hobby store called Owls Hobbies on the outskirts of London with my father in 98. That expanded to 6 stores all around the UK, England, and from there we were quite happy. And then all of a sudden, about 6 years ago, Horizon Hobby came along and said, would I like to have an adventure and move to the US and work for them full time? So after lots of discussion with my parents and with my family, we ended up here in snowy central Illinois. And 5 years later, I'm the product developer for Hangar 9. I do other stuff at Horizon as well. I help out with the beta testing. I help out with e-flight testing. A lot of the flying videos I help out in. I have a interest in marketing, so I set up a video format called On the Fly, which I do with my colleague Pete Holy. And so jack of all trades, master of none sort of thing. But most importantly, lifelong hobbyist. I've worked in this trade all my life.
That's hold on here, see if it comes back.
Hello.
Hang on, folks. This is bound to happen on a live show. We'll see if I can raise him. Stand by. Let's see. Where's my chat with him?
No mute buttons on here, so if you can hear me, I can hear you, obviously.
Hold on, everybody. Okay. What we'll do, Ali, is let's see. I'm going to turn off my camera. And let's see if you start and stop your microphone and camera. If not, I'll call you back. And we'll just edit this out and post. All right, hold on here. I'm actually going to drop the call and call you back. Okay, stand by.
Okay.
There he goes. He's back. I'm going to turn off that camera. I'm going to save a little bandwidth. Hello. Okay, so the video is going to do some weird jumping around and everything. Let's see. Okay. So, all right. The last thing you said was your adventure. You were working on the fly with Pete, and that's when we lost you. So we'll take it from there. And just, I guess, you'd summed up everything about about your immediate adventure. So I actually want to drill back into a couple of things you said really struck me right away off the bat was the fact that you've been flying for 42 years, and that strikes me as pretty cool because if I could have flown as a kid, if my parents could have afforded that and then, progressed on through, because the hobby in some ways, yes, at the high end, and we've seen some of the stuff that you fly, that's like beyond high end. The hobby has gotten, do you think the hobby has gotten easier to get into and afford as a parent and as a kid and as a youth and so forth?
Massively, yeah. I mean, the first question is probably the most valid and most important for me is it got easier? And yeah, I mean, the first business that I set up before the model shops was a flight tuition school. And I was pretty much every day out teaching people how to fly RC 40 size, nitro powered trainers. And yeah, for what we had then for equipment, for reliability, for tech, and compared to what we have now, it's infinitely easier now. The learning curve we had was so vast. Even the getting to the field section, as far as the ARF days, ARF airplanes in those days, you're still looking at a good solid week of assembly. Now you have the ability to assemble it at the field, and not just something. It's something that's really, really good and has a tech in it that pretty much, I wouldn't say facilitates, but helps people learn without the need for an instructor. I mean, when I was first learning to fly, you were looking at months of building time and then going to the field and trying to find somebody to help you, and that could be a problem, and then breaking it and you have to start all over again because spares weren't available. So yeah, it's so much easier now.
Very cool. And cost-wise, I remember spending all that time building my first SIG and being absolutely terrified because all I could see flying through the air were dollar amounts, right? Because it was it was a serious amount of money. We're talking early 90s, but it was still a fair investment to get going. And, things like the radio technology now is you buy a radio, and back then it was non-computer and you'd get the chips and, the routine. And now it's this lovely piece of technology I can use through a whole spectrum of a piece of equipment now. So it definitely has come a long way. And like you said, helped a lot of younger generations, and we're seeing a lot of younger, real superb fly. I was really impressed with your trip you took the other week, and you showed a picture of a young man flying your Bronco. And, your comments were watch this kid because he knew what he was doing. And it's phenomenal to see that, and that's not a small piece of equipment. And like you said, he flew it beautifully.
Yeah, it's an irony of the hobby because it's a hobby that lends itself to the young, as far as reaction time, visibility, the fearlessness and so forth. So yeah, it's, for me, it's multifaceted when I don't see the young getting involved, and vice versa. It's really, really rewarding when I see young kids picking up a transmitter and enjoying the hobby. So I try and make a bigger deal of it as I can. And that was a great example. I was in Arizona and I was there at a Warbird event, and there was this young lad in 2 pit sections down from where I was, and I didn't see him fly probably for the first day or so, and then the second day I saw him and I'm like, wow, very quiet, understated, shy kid, and I was like, he can really fly. And so when he took my offer up of flying the OV10, I was stoked. I was like, yeah, that's super cool, and he flew it amazingly well. So yeah, stuff like that warms my heart. There's lots of moments in the hobby like that. I mean, there's lots of negatives, but I don't focus on those. The stuff like that, when I see youngsters, when I see families, it reminds me what the hobby's about. So yeah, that was a big plus moment for me.
All right, let's dive into your current job at Hangar 9 doing and Horizon and doing some pretty amazing stuff. I obviously own at least one product from Hangar 9, but I feel like the product, the brand name has really switched on in the last 2 to 3 years. Like all of a sudden, we just started seeing bigger and better and more incredible stuff, and a lot of surprises along the way. Do you? I guess when you look at the lineup, and this will come into a couple of questions too. But how do you balance that? The wants and the realities of the hobby and everything in that particular product line too. Your Hangar 9 line.
There's lots of discussion, lots of thoughts, lots of consideration. There are compromises. We have to compromise a lot. I guess the first discussion is regards segment, how we're doing in particular segments. Have we got an aeroplane that's a smaller 10cc, 20cc sport aeroplane? Have we got a giant scale warbird? Are there any gaping holes in segments that we haven't filled or have found ourselves not competing in, ones that we want to compete in? It's not a one-person job. Although I'm the lead developer, there is one other guy that's done a singular Hangar 9 airplane in the last 5 years, which is Gary Wright. He's a fellow developer. But what I'm trying to say is it's not just down to me. I'll take the idea. The OV10 is a great example. We identified a segment which was twin. We didn't have a twin-engined aeroplane within the Hangar 9 brand at the time, and this was going back 3 years. As the general rotational cycle time of a project is 18 months to 2 years. So 3 years ago we started talking, and I was like, okay, I had two particular projects in mind. One was an OV10 and the other one was a Shrike Commander, Aero Commander. And I took it to the team, and the team consists of, first and foremost, my brand manager, Alex Albors. His job is basically the marketing and the running of the admin of the brand and so forth. And then I took it to a work colleague, Craig Greening, who is a previous Hangar 9 product developer. He's now promoted to the field marketing manager role, and said, look, what do you think, guys? And they can either say, let's discuss it further. And then from there, it goes to the team meeting. And the team meeting will involve my category manager or category director, sales and purchasing team. And that's about it, if I remember rightly. It's been a while since we've had a team meeting together. So around the table, we'll discuss it, and we go, okay, look, we've identified a segment. We want to make a twin. We want to make it this big, and we just hash it out basically, and we do pros and cons and go, okay, this is good, that's bad. This is good, that's bad. And do we need it? Can we afford it? Can the market support it? What are the forecasted sales? And if it keeps knocking down hurdles, we carry on going to a point where it gets a green light, and I reach out to the vendor that I choose and say, right, a plane, make us a sample.
Very cool. Actually, Ali, can I get you to turn off your video? We want to perceive. I know the online guys are going to be crushed, but I want to preserve the audio for the podcast for the best possibility. So on your window, there should be a little camera off icon.
Got it.
There we go.
That's a better picture anyway.
It'll just make the audio that much nicer. Unfortunately, I do apologize for that, but it'll just and it makes our dialogue a little harder, I think. But it'll smooth out. Okay, so fantastic. So you've had this roundtable discussion with all your peers and various levels and everything, and then you go out to your manufacturer and. Do you run into a wall as far as, like you said, segments and everything? Is there a ceiling? I guess the word I would use. Is there a ceiling as far as Hangar 9 or any of your brands will go before it's too much for the brand to support?
Too much in what way, Andre?
Financially, too much.
The cost of the end product.
Yes.
I'd like to say no. If the market will support it, no. And I think it's fair to say that we've looked at how the market, and I don't mean the mass market by any means, but how a small segment of the market has had a need for larger scale, more expensive aeroplanes, and thought, okay, we'll try and fill that. The OV-10 is a great example. Before that, we had a composite glider, an ASH-31, which retailed just shy of $3,000. And yeah, we're realistic about, volume isn't going to be the same as selling a $240 ultra stick 10cc. But, if we feel that the market will support it, I don't feel like there'll be a restriction to kill it.
That's amazing. That is amazing to hear. And it has, like I said, it has been surprising in the last couple of years watching the brand kind of, here. And so do you have a community that you go out? Like, how do you determine, you guys can, or is it one of those build it and they will come kind of philosophies? Or are you guys got your ear to the ground and you're listening to what's going on in the community?
So, it's a lot for me. It's a roundabout question, but answer, should I say. I do a lot of events, and I do a lot of events privately. I do a lot of events with work. I'm a very active aero modeler. I fly pretty much every opportunity I can. I think I got to where I am at Horizon because of my presence at events around the world and so forth. At those events, I'm watching. I'm always watching. I'm a big fan of learning by watching, and that's from flying, from airmanship, from just general behavior, and also market. What's going on? If I suddenly see a whole bunch of 100cc float aeroplanes, I'm going to log that and register that and go, okay, that's what's required. And the same, I listen. If I suddenly hear people saying, oh, I wish there was a 10cc ultra stick,
mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll react on that and I'll take that to a meeting and I'll go, look guys, I just did a great example is I do event reports. So Fond du Lac is a big warbird event up in Wisconsin, and about 4 years ago, I'd say I did that, and I noticed a really big insurgence in World War One. There was a bunch of people doing these dawn patrols. Balsa USA had these World War One airplanes, and whenever they'd fly, there'd be people, waiting in line to fly in that dawn patrol gaggle. And I was like, what? That's great. I love it. It's wonderful. But there's no ARFs. You have to go and build. You have to go and spend weeks or months in a workshop. So literally, that was in August. By November, I'd already got the authorization to go ahead and make what is the Hangar 9 quarter scale D7.
Mm-hmm.
I went there and guys, look, I'm seeing it. This isn't the first and only event. The warbird events I've been at, I'm seeing an insurgence in World War One. It's wonderful, it's great, but those guys who don't want to build, can't build, just want to get something this season, they've got nothing. So, I went to bat, as it were, and said, this is what I think. And the initial response was, raised eyebrows. Really, you want to build a big, just sub $1,000 World War One airplane? And there's always discussion, there's pushback, and that's how it should work, So, and if you present a valid enough argument and you have enough passion and enough, information and data to back it up, then it's a go.
Yes, and beautiful job on that one. I what I quite enjoy about the most recent planes is how you sit there and say, well, if you want to go gas, go here. If you want to go electric, go here. And and I like how you guys have been presenting that information, because I wouldn't say it's 50-50, but the amount of people I know that go, I will never touch a wet plane again because I've discovered electric and love it, and then vice versa, right? And it's been fascinating to watch, and I'm kind of in between right now where I love my 6S planes. I don't think I want to touch a 12S because that's just craziness, but I get it and I understand it, and it's been interesting. And this one was great. And then you and is it your colleague is Mr. Electric there?
Gary, right?
Gary, yes. I loved how you two were just bouncing off each other in one of the videos going, well, it's built for this. Actually, it was the pits. That's the one. The pits was like, almost built. And then you're like, well, I'm going to take the spec and I'm going to go to the next level. And I love that because you guys are basically able to mimic what the community is doing right then and there. And you're thinking about that and you're building the products accordingly. So, as a guy who does like building but is terrible at it, I really appreciate those steps and those thought processes. So another question then, and I'll pop back into the fuel and electric after in a second, but have you ever had one that just you tried your hardest and it just didn't make it past the cutting room floor?
In the sense of getting approval?
Yes.
Every week. Every single week.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Hanging on Oscar was probably about a year-long fight to get that through approval. There was a lot of pushback on that because it was a non-allied fighter. What else? Pretty much every project for a while will be on and off. I mean, there's a project that's on the cards right now to be discussed in tomorrow's meeting that's been off and on and off for probably 18 months right now. And tomorrow it might get the green light. So, yeah, it's fluid. The market is fluid. We're always looking at sales. I'm always looking at forums going, okay, where's, I wouldn't say a massive insurgence or a spike, but I'd say, okay, where's stuff bubbling right now? Where are gaps? Where are voids? A great example would be the aerobatic market. A lot of people, and I listen as well, because I talk aero modeling like 24/7, and I do get a fair few people come to me and say, when are Hangar 9 going to make another aerobatic airplane? Giant scale aerobatic airplane. We were known for it. Rewind the clock 10, 15 years, and I think it's fair to say we were market leaders in the giant scale aerobatic airplanes. And I get people come to me and say, okay, when are you going to make one of those? And I'm like, really? Honestly, no time soon. And the reason for that is market saturation. There are so many players in that segment now. We could come and make a 100cc aerobatic airplane and we can do a good job, but people like Extreme Flight have got that market wrapped up. So why would we want to? Let's focus in other little segments where we excel at, and maybe they don't, or others aren't dominating, as it were, per se. So yeah, it's always fluid.
Well, and that is I guess that is one of the fantastic things about this hobby. The variety, the amount of variety is just crazy. You also said something earlier on about the lead time. So, you have this idea and 18, 24 months in development. Are you panicking going, we might have, missed the boat on this? Is this a real threat? Or is it just like the community will still be in love with this idea?
With some projects, yes, definitely. There are some projects, we have a term at work called Evergreen, and I'll use two examples, which is the Ultra Stick, whether it be 10 or 30cc, and the Carbon Cub 15cc. They're what we class as evergreen projects. They don't go anywhere. There's never going to be a massive spike for Ultra Sticks, but they're going to be consistent. People are going to want a square boxy basher airplane. So yeah, there's the no on that. But yes, there are others, and there's projects that I'm working on now, which will release probably this year and next, that are, I wouldn't say time critical, but I do feel like every week or every month that we miss out, that segment is getting more and more saturated. When we started that project, or these projects, the segment was pretty unsupported, but others have also, it's not rocket science what we do. Others have gone, okay, they need X or Y airplane, and they've got to market quicker than us, and that is a concern, especially with I've got one project now that's in its 5th year of development. So wow.
That's huge.
It is very, very, very long lead time on this project. But yeah, with that one, it's changed a lot, the market in 5 years. Hopefully not so much that it's not, current and desirable. I'm pretty sure it's not. It's a pretty safe subject matter. But yes, it is always a consideration. And that's one of our tick boxes in our system, is basically what's your estimated development time for this project. So, yeah.
Actually, I'm reading some of the questions coming over. There's a lot of great questions, and I'll keep pulling back and pulling through them. But Alex asks, when building the OV10, did you plan on the fact that the OV10 would possibly be a special or limited market?
Yes, I was from the onset, because of the size of it. I knew that would be a limiting factor. The cost of it, and more importantly, the cost of completion. That's a very important consideration for me, is what you're going to have in the actual airplane at the end of it. So, yes, that's always on my mind. And the OV10 was always meant as a pinnacle, because that suggests we're not going to make anything bigger or bolder, but it was always one of the higher up, more special airplanes in the Hangar 9 fleet. We've done a bunch of 20cc Warbirds, we've done the P-47, we've done the P-51, we've done the Sport Basher airplanes, which was the Ultra Sticks. I'd done, finished off the Tiger 30cc Sport Basher airplane, done a bunch of Cubs. I felt like I'd served my dues to the low and the mid-level market, and this was my sort of guilty pleasure of going, look, we haven't serviced the top end, so let me loose with a fancy pants twin. So yeah, that's where the OV10s was aimed at.
I have a colleague or buddy who works at Great Hobbies here in Ottawa, and he says, yeah, one of his customers ordered it, and he was they were looking in the box when the customer came and just stunned. This is probably one of those airplanes that I will look forward to seeing in person, but I admit, the first night it came out when you guys released it, I was sitting there and I'm looking at it, and my wife leans over and she goes, no. No. And so this is, like, you guys smashed it out of the park, and this one was neat in the sense, like, you talked about all the innovation that you guys packed into it, and just like things like the different coverings and stuff like this. And I watched that video. I must have watched the video 2 or 3 times, and just to capture all the finessing and detail. Like, I mean, and it strikes it from a visual end of it, the scale of it, the technical end of it, the design of it, and everything. And actually, one question that was posed, particularly in regarding to something like this, is how much where did it go? How much CAD work is done in the U.S. or contracted out when you design something like this? Because obviously it's all machined. Well, the wood bits and everything are all laser cut, a little bit of machining and everything. You say, 18 to 24 months into the market, but how much of that is that pre-development time?
It varies for brand. It varies for vendor, which vendor we use. It varies for project, of course, and how complex it is and so forth. So put it briefly as I can. E-Flight, with the foam airplanes, all injection molded. They will all be done in 3D CAD. Mm-hmm. Part of that CAD will be done in-house. The majority of it will be done at the vendor. Hangar 9 being Balsa wood, some composite work will be 90% 2D CAD. All of that will be done at vendor with review here in the US, and then back and forth. Now, the reason for that is multifaceted. Obviously, cost. More importantly, it's to do with the conversion for the vendors. So when we've done CAD here in the US, there's always been a conversion issue for when we send it to the vendor to be set up for laser cutting and so forth. Only small, nothing major, but we found it was actually more cost effective and quicker to say, right, factory, X, Y, Z, whoever we're using, here's my wish list, here's my drawings, here's my basic, spec, airfoil size, weight, features, incidents, all that sort of stuff, thrust angles, yada, yada, yada. Give us a first round CAD. And the first round CAD they will give us will be very 2D, very basic. and then we'll sit there and review, revise, adjust, and say, okay, send it back to them. And it's like CAD ping pong. We'll play that game for anywhere between a week to a month until we're ready, and then we approve CAD, and that's when they can start producing. So, yeah, it's probably CAD work consists of a Hangar 9 project for about 15-20% of it.
Wow. And that's it sounds intensive. Like we talk, we're fortunate on the podcast, or I'm fortunate on the podcast to talk to various designers primarily doing foam, but it sounds like it's a very intensive process, because the longer you guys are, this step, the longer, it's just extending your development and release time. So it must be pretty intense just to, okay, let's get tick, 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 tick through, and then we can get on to the next phase. But you don't want to make an error, obviously, because it's harder to go back, correct?
Yeah, correct. It's so much harder on foam because of the cost involved in the tooling. You've got one shot effectively at getting it right, and even a tooling revision or adaptation or modification is darn expensive. With wood, it's not so bad. We can go, okay, you know what, that wing section didn't work. Can you make us a new set of wings with this airfoil? Yeah, we can do that. Worst case scenario, that sample flew awful. I think the incidence angles are out. Can you make me a whole new sample? And it's just a quick CAD review. So yeah, it's one of the things I like about Hangar 9. It suits my creative nature more than the high pressure. What I see the E-Flight guys go through. They do a lot of CNC testing, a hell of a lot, before they go, right, we're ready to tool, and rightly so. We're talking 6-figure sums for tooling. These you don't want to get that wrong.
No, that is actually some really detailed information. Thank you. Interesting question from Delta Dart. Any chance of ever seeing a Hangar 9 4-engine warbird? Example, like a B-29, the classic B-17, a Lancaster, or would that be too small or too costly for the market?
In my tenureship, I'd say no, unless my bosses, say, look, go and make a 4-engined aircraft. I think, and the reason for that is just cost of completion. Mm-hmm. So, I'm thinking right now, if I made a B-17, how big would I have to make it? And I could do it. We could do it. It's just whether or not the sales, what I believe the sales would support and justify the cost. And that's what it's all about, Andre. We'll make a flying school bus if we can sell X amount of them. Yeah. But, we obviously know if we make a flying school bus, the sales are going to be very small. And I believe the same with a 4-engined aircraft. I believe you narrow the window so much, and that's what it's all about for us, especially a bigger company. A lot of people don't realize how much of a consideration, how different it is for a company of our size, with the overheads that we have, with the support infrastructure we have, with the dealer network we have. It's, the volume is very important.
Yeah. Alex asked a follow-up question to his OV10 consideration. He says, did you guys lose any of them during your testing and development stage?
OV10, no, amazingly. Yeah, nice. It's close. With the 1-engine testing that I did, I came very close. In fact, it wasn't actually me that was flying. It was a fellow product developer. During the sign-off process, I give it to others to fly, and he lost an engine literally at the worst point, which was just at the point of rotation. But we did load testing on the wings of the OV10, so we didn't do a destruction test. So no, we have every sample still flying.
That's amazing. Okay, let's get into some fun questions. If you had to pick between fuel or electric, what would you, like, if you were building your current planes and everything, what would you go with?
Hands down electric.
Nice.
And only because I'm lazy. I am immensely lazy when it comes to having fun. I want to have the most amount of fun for the least amount of effort. And doing as much flying as I do, doing as much development flying as I do, demo flying, whatever you want to call it, I've learned that nothing beats the return on investment in terms of time and effort than electric gives you.
I'm echoing that sentiment. It's as much as I love the sound of that 60cc motor, the amount of fiddling and everything, and it's almost it can be terrifying. And I could see, like, I was waiting to see if you were going to put twin gas motors into the OV10, and when you said no, electric 12S, perfect, fine, I'm like, yep, I know why, because you got to break this thing down to transport it and everything. So very cool. Oh, here we go. I'm starting to dive into my questions and also reading through any of the questions on the chat. But is there a special model out there that you've not flown or owned yet?
Yeah, many. It's the thing about the hobby. I've said it's a bit like just in my head instilled. It's endless. This hobby is just, anyone that says they've done it, they're bored of it, they're quitting because they've done it all, is talking rubbish, because there is forever aeroplanes that are out there to be flown, and for me, a whole bunch. So yeah, I separate it into various different sections. Planes I'd like to fly, planes I'd like to own, and they're not always the same, because there are many planes out there that I'd love to fly but have no interest in owning at all. So yeah, and the list is getting longer. It's like any good bucket list. It's not getting any smaller, unfortunately. So yeah.
So I have a massive storage problem now, and my wife has a little sticker that she stuck on my wall one day saying, for every new airplane that comes in, I got to get rid of 2 or 3. And I'm like, okay, fine. Now it's actually, becoming harder to stick within the confines of that rule, because a lot of them now are those emotional heartstring planes, and you're like, ooh, it's going to be tough the next batch if I have to get rid of anything. That's fascinating. And I like what you say when, like, there's so many different facets in there, and we've been lucky to occasionally take a peek and get a peek of what you play with, and there is no left or right. You've got some extreme electric stuff, and then you go all the way up to your turbines, and like last year you were rocking out some pretty impressive aircrafts and turbines. But it's fascinating because in the sense that you get to show us what's possible out there, which is pretty cool. And you say that there are ones that you haven't owned yet, and I kind of go, really? Like, and are you looking to go even bigger? Like you posted that composite jet the other day, that was huge. What was it, like 1/4 scale MiG or something like that?
No, that's I think a 3rd scale Sukhoi from China. Yeah, me personally, no. I'm done with the ultra giant scale airplanes. I was just discussing it today. Fun enough, I was with a good friend building, and yeah, I did. It's not so much in the US because you have weight restrictions, which are a little bit restricting, as restrictions normally are. But yeah, in the UK, I did some very, very giant scale airplanes, and it was fun. I'm not going to lie and say I didn't enjoy it, but I look back and go, would I like to do that again right now? And no, it's just so much effort for the return. I had some, an airplane that comes to mind is a giant C-17 that was just shy of 300 pounds wet at takeoff, and it was a 3-man job to rig it. 2 hours from the moment the doors of the truck opened to the time we were flying. And it was great at the time, but I have no interest in doing that again. Right now, I'm at that time of life where I'm just being greedy. I want to get as much flying in as I can with the least amount of work. So whilst I won't be, flying just park flyers, I try and have airplanes. If I can limit it to being able to assemble it and move it myself, that's sort of my limiting factor now. Yeah. That's ideal for me. So.
And then on that, does that influence your design ideas for the products you're looking at and pushing with Hangar 9?
No, I try and keep it separate, because I said this from, there are definitely lots and lots of my inputs, desires in the Hangar 9 portfolio right now, and that was always my goal when I joined the company. If they let me loose with the purse strings and said, "Here, make whatever you want to make," yeah, we'd be bankrupt in a couple of years, because it'd all be giant scale stuff that only sells a handful. So, no, I always try and think about, okay, can we fit this in a regular customer's car? Can a regular customer afford this? Can a regular customer fly? And that was one of the things with the OV10, was the fact that I wanted a twin engine airplane that anyone could fly. I wanted a twin engine airplane with a Hershey bar wing, with trailing link undercarriage, with a long tail moment and a huge stab. So anyone with basic flying experience could fly it. Yes, I know it's giant scale and large, but the design principle of making it as simple a giant scale airplane was what we were going for.
So, will we see a smaller scale version of the OV10 in the future?
I wouldn't say absolutely not. I doubt it in Hangar 9, because there's already a wooden OV10 out there, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I'm amazed more people haven't made models of it. I really am, because it's, I use a tick box, positive, negative process, and the positives of the OV10 are so high, it's crazy. So yeah, I'd be very, very surprised if we don't see more of them.
And I love twin prop planes. There's just something so cool about watching those things crab in on final, and if you've got good flaps and everything. So yes. All right, moving on these questions. Having some fun. Best or classified as worst crash ever? Do you got one?
Yeah, funny enough, it just came up on the internet today. It's been with me for the last, 12, 15 years. It was the worst crash ever, in the sense that it's bloody haunted me for so long. It was a scale turbine jet of a English Hunter, and it came up on some Facebook crash page today. And the reason why I say worst is because it comes up, it's a video, it's a beautifully shot video. The plane fireballs. We were out testing at a local field just outside of London, or about an hour outside of London, and it was totally my mistake. I'd been out flying the day before, flying the same airplane. It was a pretty new airplane. I was trying to dial it in, and I had a problem with the setup of it. And I finally got to the bottom of this problem, and I had a flight, and it was great. And I was like, so happy. It's normally I can dial a plane in one or two sittings, but this one had proper haunted me for a while. And I got it right. And I thought, yes, I'm going to do one more flight. And I didn't factor in how much I'd flown it on, what battery I had, and the receiver went flat. It rolled into the ground, exploded into a fireball. And it was the worst because it was a very, very nice airplane. It was the worst because of the cost. It was the worst because it's probably the longest or the most complicated paint job I've ever put on an airplane, still to this day. I worked with a single painter at the time who painted all my airplanes, and this airplane took him about 4 times longer than anything else because of the complexity of the color scheme. And it's the worst because it just keeps generating so much stuff online about why it crashed. And, I just want everyone to know I screwed up. It was 100% pilot error, maintenance error, whatever you want to call it, my error. And it just goes round in cycles again. And the irony of it is, at the time when it crashed, the guy with the camera came up and said, I've got video of it. Do you mind if I post it? And I was like, look, you know what? It's totally up to you. I can't tell you what to do or what not to do, but I don't think this does the hobby any good. So I'd rather you didn't. Next day it was up, and we're on like 8 million views so far that I've counted. So,
and you're not getting any royalties either.
I'd happily give the royalties to charity right now. But that's the worst one. So very appropriately timed question, that one. Best crash. Oh, there's so many. Yesterday, day before yesterday, Pete and I were out filming from the fly, and we were doing snow footage. Basically, I wanted to do a video out in the snow, and I was doing inverted Harriers with a bunch of different airplanes, and to have the ability to keep crashing in the snow inverted and nothing would happen. I just go and pick the airplane up and flip it and throw it. They're the best crashes.
They are fun. That's that. There are certain airplanes that I fly that, belly landers, and just like, yep, this thing might not last, or if it does, it's going to be a lot of glue and tape by the time I'm finished with it. But it's just, there's certain planes that I'm like, yeah, certain ones I baby and take care of and respect, and then other ones it's like low, fast, hard, because that's just funny. Okay, that is awesome. Okay, another quick question. Do you have advice to new pilots who want to go larger scale? What should they look for? How should they start out? What do you think?
Like anything really, seek like-minded flyers. Try and learn from others. Try and watch and learn. Turn up to a club which, if you have that opportunity, drive to a club which people fly giant scale stuff, and see what their preferences are, and just see the different handling, different airmanship, different ground handling for the giant scale airplanes. And don't run before you can walk. Mm-hmm. Remember, giant scale is a state of mind. To somebody, a 60-inch airplane is a giant scale airplane. Bigger is not always better. Bigger can sometimes be a lot worse. So work your way up to it. If you want to go giant scale, technically the IMA or the AMA, whatever it is, clarification for giant scale is just 80 inches, which is just 2 inches bigger than a Carbon Z T28, or good example, the Carbon Z Cub, Carbon Cub. That's giant scale. So, start with something like that. Get used to the handling, stuff like inertia. You remember, it weighs more. If you went straight from a UMX airplane, even to a Carbon Z airplane, the plane's going to fly differently. It's going to have more inertia, more authority, and sit differently. So, don't just go from a UMX airplane to a 120-inch Bronco. So that's probably my biggest, most.
Yeah, learn to land those big airplanes, like gentle planes too. Do you, I guess you fly all kinds of gear configuration, but, and these are one of my hot seat questions, but this is fascinating from a personal preference and everything. Do you prefer a tail dragger over a tricycle gear?
It's impossible to answer that one for me, because there's so many different variations on that question. Good example is the X-Cub that I designed and made for Hangar 9. They do a tail dragger and a trike version of that now.
That's
and
right.
For me, tail dragger all day long, because the trike version is hideous on the eye. So, from an aesthetic point of view, it depends on the airplane. But then if you did a tail dragger OV10, I'd be like, oh, that looks a bit sketch. So
that would be weird.
From handling point of view, if I'm being lazy, a trike always wins. It really does. They're so much easier in terms of ground handling and taxiing and so forth. From aesthetics, 9 times out of 10, the tail dragger for me.
Yeah. It was funny because not last year, but the year before, I was really getting on in my jets flying and everything, and really enjoying things like the E-Flight P4, the Phantom. Yes, there we go. And it was funny because I was flying a bunch of different jets and trike gear, and then I grabbed one of my Cubs and I ground looped the tail dragger for the first time ever, and I'm like, what's going on? It was just, muscle memory wasn't quite back there, and I'm like, oh, rudder, that's right. But it's funny that you get used to a certain style and everything, and but I agree. I quite enjoy flying a good tail dragger. Okay, interesting philosophical question almost. The future, ignoring a lot of the issues that we're reading about and everything. What's your positive crystal ball? What would you like to see, in the next 2 to 3 years for the hobby?
A lift of the restrictions, removing of the shackles that are holding everyone down and getting everyone so angst would be, if you're talking about what I'd like to see removed, changed with the hobby to make it improve.
Mm-hmm. So is this, I hate jumping into these subjects, but are a lot of these little issues coming up from the FAA, are they challenging what you guys are trying to do, like your plans and everything? Are you really having to think about it, or are you just pushing forward with products and various things?
No, it massively impacts what we do, how we move forward. We have regular meetings and discussions about how we're going to work within the restrictions, how the restrictions affect current projects, how they affect future projects, what we anticipate the market doing in terms of the restrictions stay the same or get worse. So, no, we're a very, very proactive company in terms of working in and around the restrictions, and also working with them. We're not naive. We know that they're going to happen regardless of what we write on the internet or say in a podcast. So, what can we do to make the hobby better with them? So, yeah, it's a constant consideration for us now, which was weird because, in my short 5-year time at Horizon, it's gone from not being a consideration to being probably one of the primaries in every project we do. Yeah,
and being very cognitive of scale and weight, and then will someone be able to actually retain their investment down the road? Yeah, it's worrisome at points. Yes, I agree. Okay, we're gonna get into some other questions from people watching the podcast, and people who have submitted stuff. Scott Phillip writes, in the years I've been in the hobby, I've noticed that models from specific airframes come and go en masse. Example, the A1 Sky Raider was everywhere in 2010 to 2014, and now they're very hard to find in foam, except for a couple other releases. Similarly, the A10 all of a sudden showed up and everything, and sibling with the F-18, and now the OV-10 Bronco is in demand and wasn't there before. Is there a time span in the market of like 2 to 3 years? Is this something that you've just kind of discussed it, but is this something that you guys do where you say, okay, let's pop this product in and then we'll pull it back and then we'll reintroduce it later on?
Both. We will look at market trends and we will look at innovation. We have regular innovation meetings. So, to rewind, let's go back 4 years, and we saw a window of opportunity with innovation in the VTOL category. So we directed a lot of our attention towards VTOL aircraft. And we went and we serviced that market, and we did very, very well. We had a number of VTOL aircraft that we sold in large numbers, and we moved, I wouldn't say away from it, we're still looking at it, but we took the emphasis off that, and vice versa. EDF, we just not common knowledge, but 4 years ago, we had very few EDFs in our lineup. Mm-hmm. We had a meeting and we decided, look, it's a segment we think is growing. It's a segment that we know we could do well with. We have vendors who are capable of making EDFs. We have designers in-house who have EDF experience. Let's go into that market. And that's where we are at now. So, and the same with subjects. There are trends, there are fashions. And as I said at the beginning of this, both. There are evergreen projects, Cubs, Mustangs, It's the elephant in the room I'm going to throw out there is, why another Cub? Why another Mustang? Simply because they always sell. They sell.
Staples,
yeah, they're evergreen. It's just what people want. So, and that's the evergreens, and the others. OV-10's a good example. It was nowhere, and then now it suddenly is everywhere. A10 is an example. We didn't have any A10s, and now suddenly we do. So, yeah, it's so variable. The market we look at, and we have little dabbles, and we have little experiments, and we try and go, okay, is that airplane or is that segment worthwhile having a punt on? And if it is, we'll go for it.
Nice. Yes, you're getting thumbs up over the EDFs, and I'm bad. I've got a bunch of really nice EDFs. There's one sitting behind me that I didn't get to fly last year because of, stuff that we're dealing with. So this year I'm hoping I'm up to it because it's those couple minutes of terror. Michael asks, I know Ali works for Horizon. What is your viewpoint? What is his viewpoint on safe and AS3X? I know the answer to this, but I'm sure a lot of people will be very interested to hear what you think about all the Spectrum technology.
It's going to sound so conceited because I work for them, but honestly, even if I didn't, I'll tell you right now, I think they're two of the best innovations that I've seen come into this industry in the 40 years that I've been flying and the 30 years that I've been working in it. Anything that makes a single aeroplane more enjoyable and easier to fly is just gold. It's what everything, should be orientated towards. If you can switch it off, then even better. I don't understand the negativity towards the tech. I really do. Well, I do, but I don't want to talk about why I think that is now. I don't understand the logic of the negativity towards the tech because it's brilliant. I've seen people that they would never have flown without safe. Never, ever. We've got two of them in our club. They would be at home right now playing golf. What a crime that would be, or fishing or something like that. They're still in the hobby because of that technology.
Yeah.
I've watched them at the field take off, and I know I've seen enough flights go bad to know where it was going, and I know that the only thing that saved them was safe. And then on AS3X, we know how much I fly, how long I've flown for. I never knowingly or wantingly want to fly another aeroplane in my life ever again without some sort of stability system. I don't know why I would. Why would I go, okay, I've got an airplane here which is more enjoyable to fly, or I've got this airplane here which is less enjoyable to fly? Let me just think about that.
No, right there. And even I've come around in the last couple of years. What really sold it for me was the UMX Timber. I put that thing up right away, and I was like, okay, yeah, I get it. And from there on, I was like, yep, I've got a DX9 now, and it's like any aircraft that comes out, I don't even go get the plug and play. I'm like, nope, just let's go. And and it's just it works. And I do like the fact that we now can toggle safe on and off the AS3X, let it rock and roll and do its thing. And it took me a little bit of time to get used to it, but now it's like, yeah, no, why would I want to fly? And some planes are unstabilized. Some planes that I fly in the fleet are just, and they're like the little, belly landers and that. And then I flew one today while I was testing, and it was amazing. And the expert settings were whacked out, and the basics were too much, but an intermediate middle, and I'm like doing slow passes. It makes it exactly like you said. It makes it that much more enjoyable. Ooh, Scott puts up a post. He just posted a really good question for you. Hangar 9 EDF. Is there anything in the future?
No.
Nope. So it's just props, big prop planes. Awesome.
I didn't say that, but he said EDFs. Is it any EDFs in the future? And I said no.
You heard it here first, folks. Awesome. Okay. Calvin asks, what has been the most successful Horizon hobby aircraft? And if you don't know that, we'll go for a Hangar 9, I guess.
In my tenureship here, or just in general?
Yes. We'll go with yours.
In my time here, it's been the 15cc Carbon Cup.
Nice. How many do you know?
Of course.
So, how many Carbon Cubs have been sold? Actually, this is a really good question.
Not enough.
Not enough?
Not enough yet, no.
Really? But it's still your number one. So interesting.
Never enough. Keep selling.
Well, I guess, yeah, like you said, it's your evergreen project. But okay, and then an evergreen plane, do you come back and will you do tweaks, or is it kind of like until it's don't fix what's broken or not broken? Yeah, that's it.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, there are changes to every project. I have never released an airplane that's gone from first production run to the last production run without changes. So, yeah, not forever, but certainly every project is getting tweaked from the moment it's released. As far as changing it as a total project midway through its life cycle, no. Generally, we tend not to. If it's selling well enough, the effort and time involved in changing, say, the color scheme wouldn't justify the additions in cost. Do we come back and revisit projects? Yes. You know, if we feel like there's an airplane that maybe stopped selling for whatever reason, and we have the tooling and we have the CAD and we could put it back into production, it's always a consideration. We don't often take that route because usually it's as much work to build a completely new project and hit a whole new customer set. But there are times where we've gone, okay, you know, this airplane deserves a second shot. So, yeah.
Cool. That is really cool, actually. Yeah. It's interesting to see. One finite question, and I'm going to jump into the hot seat stuff. Will you be doing? Was the vinyl on the OV10, the Bronco, a big enough hit that we'll see something like that in the future?
100%.
Yeah.
One of my MOs, or one of my goals when I joined Horizon was I don't ever want to make another Warbird, scale Warbird in Ultra Coat ever again.
Too shiny, right?
Too shiny, too unrealistic. Too much maintenance. So yeah, I'm really averse to Ultra Coat covered Warbirds. So I started work straight away with a vendor that I knew of in developing the printed on covering with more detail. And the first project I got authorized to do was the 20cc P47, which was silver with black panel lines, and that was it. And then we did a couple of tests with the same vendor, and the feedback was good from customers, and people at work liked it. So we did the P51 next, where I experimented with much finer printing so we could incorporate rivet details, hatches and panels and so forth. No weathering at that time. And the end goal was to have a very detailed finish with weathering, with texturing, with worn areas, and that's what the OV10 has been. So, yeah, and for me, I love it. I short of glassing and painting an aeroplane, which is impossible for ARF production, it's the best thing available, in my opinion.
Very cool. I really do look forward to seeing one of these in person one day, because it sounds like that next leap, and I'm kind of curious to see if you guys bring something down in size for the rest of us commoners who just have sedans. Hey, I got that giant, that really big extra to cram into my car, and was really happy that I discovered the tail came off, because otherwise I was pooched. All right.
The OV10 breaks down into 7 pieces. And
I saw that, but then, I would have to probably sell my soul and the rest of my entire fleet to fly it, but I probably would do it, actually. I probably would, because I love what that looks like and what it represents.
If you ever want to fly one, feel free to come to Eli, Illinois during the summer, and more than happily get you some stick time on one.
It might happen one day. So
might make for a good live at Eli.
That would, you know what? Pete and I could set that up.
I'm available, so yeah, it's not a problem.
Excellent. Okay, we're gonna jump into these quick hot seat questions. They're supposed to be really fast, and there are tons of questions, and I'm sure I could keep you going for forever. But we've actually been talking for an hour, which has been amazing. So we'll do a couple.
I'm in my basement, so it's not a problem.
You're chilling out. I wish we could have done the video so everybody could have seen the backdrops and everything, but it's good that we've got clean audio, because that makes the audio podcast that much more important to the people that download and subscribe to it. So, okay, we're gonna do some hot seat questions. So I answer a question, you do a quick one, and then there's a bell for fun effect. All right. We'll go through a couple of these and have some fun. So, question number 37. Vanilla or chocolate?
Chocolate.
Awesome. All right. Question number 2. What would you change? This is probably going to be a long answer, but that's all right. What would you change about the hobby if you could?
Internet trolls. Kill them.
Nice. No one's ever answered that, but I agree. There places I don't go because it's frustrating to read. Actually, I know the answer to this one. So, a $2,000 plane or $2,100 planes?
Oh, okay. I'm greedy, so $2,100 airplanes.
Really?
Yeah.
That's crazy. Given what I've seen in your hangar, sir, that's impressive. That's impressive. But like,
yeah, I want to keep flying, and variety is what drives me.
mm-hmm.
And yeah, I'm a quantity versus quality guy, I'm afraid. Yeah. So that's only one crash away from being planeless.
Yeah, well, yeah. Yes, on the high end scale, I get it, and it's interesting, because this is one of the fun benefits of me, running the podcast and continuing with the podcast. I always have people in my ear going, well, have you tried this? Well, what about this? And that's where the Balsa gasser came in last year and everything, and all these other little things. And I've been having a lot of fun. And Pete and I were having this fantastic discussion about turbines. And I'm like, I started running the numbers and went, wow, that's beyond my budget. But that's another story. All right, 42. Floats on snow or skis?
I would have said floats, but I converted a plane to skis and flew it Friday, and I'm still smiling. So skis.
Excellent. That's what I was doing the last couple of days, and it is fun, especially when you see all the tracks and everything. Doing little, I called it tickling the snow, and just giggling. Yeah, that's. We've had some really nice winter weather, which is kind of shocking for February here, and I've just been out flying as much as I can. Okay, well, you answered this earlier in the show, almost 42 years in the hobby, so that question's not really worth it. All right, number 27. This is interesting. This might be an opinionated one, but why not? Number 27 is, how do you deal with people that complain about flying in an area they think you shouldn't be flying?
Differently now than when I used to when I was younger.
Well, we all mature, and you are, I guess, you're an official statesperson of the hobby as by rights and by employment, right?
Correct. Yeah, I try and explain to them that I'm flying as safely as possible, and apologize if I was flying in an area that I shouldn't be.
Nice political answer. I like that. But you guys are also pretty lucky. And Eli Field is just, I've flown it in the simulator and smacked it off the red building a few times. And you guys have got a fantastic facility to fly out of. John, I'll ask John's question here in a second. Do you find it harder to fly in other spaces? Do you fly outside of, the Eli Field? Do you fly in other little parks and everything? Do you find it harder with the larger aircraft?
No, not at all. I'm desperate to fly anywhere I can, any opportunity I can, for a number of reasons. One, just repetition. Flying at Eli, you want to get out.
That's true. Okay, yep.
So there's a lot of that in On the Fly. If everyone watches the On the Fly videos, that's Pete and I just wanting to get a different backdrop, a different flying experience. I try and do that as much as possible. And I don't find it any different. No, I spent a good 10, 15 years of my life doing up to 18, 19 events a year, so that would take me all around the world. So it's one of the things I love is turning up to a new field, especially if it's got obstacles, if it's got a gap in the trees or something to play with. That's me as happy as. So yeah, I relish that opportunity.
Very cool. Okay, John asks, and this is actually one that's in our note, pincher or thumb pilot?
Thumbs all day
Thumbs?
long.
I
the
rock
best way to fly, in my opinion, is the way you were taught. Doesn't matter whether it's mode 1, mode 2, mode 4, pinch with your toes, with your heels, whatever. It's just I was taught thumbs, and that's the way it's always been.
Yeah, I've been a hybrid pilot, and it freaks people out, but I'm like, that's just how I gravitated to the sticks and everything.
That's it.
Yep. Perks asks, okay, single engine or twin? I think we know the answer to this one, but what do you think?
Depends if it's a single engine on a plane that took off with a twin.
Yeah, that's a rough afternoon.
Single for me always. It's just, unless you've not got the gist of it. I'm lazy. I'm greedy when it comes to flying airplanes. I just want the most amount of return for the least amount of effort. So, yeah, I do like a twin by all means, but single gives more bang per buck.
Yeah. It's funny because early on I've kind of reintroduced the multi-rotors into my ecosystem, but early on someone showed me a multi-rotor. I'm like, that's like 2 to 3 airplanes, motor ESC. Come on, guys, work with me here. But all right.
Yeah, my saying is two engines is 4 times the trouble.
Nice. Question number 16. Were you self-learned as a pilot, or did you have formal instruction?
I wouldn't call my dad being formal per se, but no, he taught me how to fly to a certain level, and then the rest I just learned by watching others that I aspire to fly like.
Nice. And I've watched flying. I have my moments when I can hang upside down, but there's just other times I'm like, nah, I just, I know my strength. I know my weaknesses. How do you encourage people to practice that? Simulator, or just get out and pure stick time and not be afraid to crash?
I've said this a number of times before, quite recently. It's not, in my opinion, it's not a skill set you're born with. It's not something you're genetically predisposed to being a good RC pilot. It's just muscle memory. It's just repetition. It's just stick time. So, yeah, anything that gets you that stick time is gold. And for me, a simulator counts as 1/3 as real or 1/3 as relevant as flying out in the field. So you know what? If you can do 3 times as much sim work because it's raining, because it's snowing, because it's blowing 40 miles an hour, then great. That all counts. Anything that gets that muscle memory working. So yeah, just get out there and fly. And it can be, sometimes it's better that it can be with a crappy airplane that doesn't necessarily fly great or does, have a pretty vicious stall. All of it is about learning with different airplanes that fly in a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. The variety of it all. I will say this. I was fortunate enough to be able to afford the real flight. And the benefit, particularly early on last year when COVID first really locked us down, was the fact that I could link with my friends, and we spent, hours online just laughing and being silly. And hey, it's a simulator, so some of it was practical, but then we'd just be doing goofy stuff that we would never do with our airplanes because we cherish our airplanes.
Yep.
Okay, question number 35. Velcro, fuzzy on the battery or fuzzy on the fuselage?
I have it. What my saying is, my Velcro is like as I am with airplanes, hard on the plane.
Excellent. I've yet to have anybody argue with that one. Okay. Hey, this is interesting. What do you think of FPV? Do you fly any FPV aircraft?
Pete's tried to get me doing it. I've done it a bunch. Pete's tried to get me involved in it for On the Fly. We did an On the Fly actually episode of me flying FPV. I love the concept. I'm just not mad on the tech. If you could give me FPV with camera and picture quality that didn't feel like I was looking at a phone from 1999, I'd be all over it.
Yeah. I'm thinking this year you might actually, with some of the DJI, V2 goggles rolling out and stuff like that. I think that might be the clincher. But again, that's there's a significant amount of money layout, and like you said, you'd rather $2,100 planes. So it's you have to pick your budget and your battles, right?
Yep.
Interesting. Okay. Do you call airplanes drones?
Hell no.
Good stuff. We've had this conversation on the as far as especially with the Canadian regulations, and it's and they're like, okay, my Phantom, my DJI Phantom is registered. I've got my certification, and then I had a couple friends go, so have you certified any of your airplanes? Because we have to actually in Canada, it's per aircraft, and I'm like, at $5 a pop? Are you kidding me? At least you guys down in the U.S., if you do it, you all have one number that you can stick on, your identifier number. But I was like, that's mental. So the DJI is on the list as far as acceptable aircraft. The planes, no, those are just planes. Thanks. Yeah, that would get really expensive. Okay, you've crashed. Do you grab tape, CA, or hot glue?
Neither. I've crashed so hard and there's no point in any of them.
Garbage bag. I'll add trash bag to that. I'll amend that with the trash bag.
Yeah,
awesome.
That's the given.
Yeah. I haven't done a good serious crash. I'm waiting for that day especially when I crumple a balsa plane, I think. No, sorry, I take that back. I killed a really weak foam F-16 years ago, and I have not replaced the F-16 in the fleet because it was the not EPO, EPP, and man, that thing was a mess. That poor little jet. All right, a few more of these, sir, and I think we'll have a great show wrapped up. Everybody's saying in the chat, a couple people, you've definitely got to try DJI FPV. So maybe we'll work on Pete to get some budgeting going for you guys. No, that's an FPV question. We just had that. I love this question. Mustang or Spitfire?
Both.
Nice.
Yeah, if it's got to be one. There's so many. Mustang, just for the choice. There's more choice of oddball color schemes.
Interesting. Yeah, that's true. I'll give you that. I can't seem to ever have enough Spitfires in my fleet. I actually don't. I do have a Mustang. I've got an older FMS P51B, which I fly occasionally, and I really like that one because the tail gear retracts, so it looks kind of neat. But I'm always a sucker for a Spitfire for some reason, but that's just me. I liked that episode you guys do with the Mustang and the wings popping off and everything. That was a lot of fun to watch.
Mm-hmm.
Line of sight FPV, we've done that one. All right, I think we are wrapping up. I'm just looking at the questions really quickly, and I'm the randomizer. I got about 40 or 50 questions, and the randomizer is starting to repeat itself. Here we go. Mode 1, 2, 3, or 4, sir?
Whichever one you were taught to fly. I fly mode 2.
Mode 2? Okay, so traditional left stick. Yep. Interesting. Because I've talked to a couple of the guys over in Australia. Yeah, and they fly the mode 1, I would say. So, yeah.
They are all upside down, so yeah, it makes sense.
And you sit there and you go, and you have to think about it. Oh yeah, you could do it. And I think it's like driving. It's like jumping between, transitioning between right-hand drive and left-hand drive, and you can do it. It's when you get into an emergency and the automatic instincts kick in. Is that gonna, am I shifting into first or am I shifting into fourth or fifth? And yeah, I get that. Actually, I had one in here just for giggles. What was your first car?
VW Beetle.
Nice. I don't know if I've shared pictures with you before, but yeah, I have a little British sports car that I adore, and actually this year I've had it for 20 years, which is kind of scary. Yeah. So a little triumph. Okay, I have a fantastic photo I was sharing with a friend the other day. I was sitting in a Spitfire vintage wings here in Ottawa or in Gatineau. We'd done a video, and I got to sit in. This was a couple years ago, and realized that there was no way I was ever going to be a Spitfire pilot. I'm far too tall. So, all right, I'm just looking really quickly through the questions. I don't think there's anything else. Everybody seems really excited about you denying or saying no EDFs for Hangar 9, so that's awesome. there is a lot of conversations about twin warbirds. So you've started some frenzy, and who knows where we're going to go down the road. One question, do you fly helicopters?
Yeah, I had a little spurt on helis again last year. Lasted for about a month. When I was mid-20s, I flew exclusively helicopters for about 3 years. And yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed it a lot. And I'll never stop. I just have little spurts of wanting to fly a heli and then get that out of my system and go flying for a while.
Excellent. All right. One last question. Do you prefer landing gear, or would you go for belly landers?
If I had to choose, then always gearless. If I can get the undercrackers off an airplane, it just flies better, looks better. So yeah, give me a belly land any day of the week.
Nice. And I guess that's a really fun part of this hobby, and the fact that there's such a variety. So you can go from your 106-inch massive Cub down to a nice little belly lander, from E-Flight or whoever, even the Park Zone. Some of the Park Zone ones were just absolutely, the Gunslinger, the P-51 Mustang Gunslinger. I have friends who were scrounging up like parts and spares and built them up from kits that they could order from the hobby store from back in the day, because they just adore that aircraft, because it's your $200 aircraft. So well, sir, that has been an absolutely such a fun time. So many amazing comments, so many, we could probably go on for hours with everybody's questions and everything. So it's really good to see the engagement from the community and everything. And it sounds like, hopefully, despite everything that's going on, we're going to have a pretty smashing fun year. So hopefully we can get you back on the show in the future after you guys have released something else special or down the road, and get you in for an update or something like that, because that would be a lot of fun. Any final thoughts or impressions that you want to leave with the community before we wrap up the show this evening?
Just a massive thank you for having me on, listening to me droll on. I'd be happy to come back anytime. I never need an excuse to talk to an airplane. So yeah, anytime you guys want. And final thought is just have fun. It's not a life change. This is somebody who lives and earns his keep by this hobby, but it's not life changing. Just enjoy it. If you fly $100 airplane, it doesn't mean it's any less fun than a $10,000 airplane. So yeah, get out there where you can, whether it's in the backyard, whether it's in a park, whether it's at the flying field, when you can, and enjoy the hobby.
Awesome words to live by and end the show off of. Ali, thank you very much, and I will definitely be leaning in on that invitation to return for another podcast. Actually, I'll let you go off the line, and then we'll finish off and wrap up the show. I've got a bunch of points and stuff that I need to clarify, so thank you.
Pleasure. Take care, guys.
All right. Bye. That was simply amazing, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for everybody who hung out with the questions and posted those questions. Huge fun. I'm going to bring up the chat. There we go. Okay, so wrapping up the show. That was amazing, guys? Really enjoy being able to talk to people from the community. Lots more stuff going to be coming down the pipe. I flew multiple times this weekend. I actually flew in February, and this afternoon's flying was amazing. It was so mild and fun. I want to wrap the show up and just remind everybody, Patreon's the draw. Sam is ready. Sam has got the Texan, so we're going to do that. We're going to figure out the details. And HangerRC also has the new RC Afterhours coupon code that will give you 10% off. There's stickers, so check out all the URL links and everything. Buddy RC reviews on, if you're watching the video, there's the Bighorn and the Challenger is on the other side behind me, and a huge shout out to Dubro, who sent some skis. So if you head over to their website and use product code video20, you'll get 20% off any of their skis. So that's huge. So keep watching the YouTube channel. there are going to be the reviews of the OMP aircraft on skis. There's some other good stuff going on. I flew that little micro mini Eachine Mustang this week, actually today, being Sunday. So this podcast will probably go tomorrow by the time I'm wrapped up. And that thing was actually amazing. It was, I don't have any photos or anything I can throw up, but it was actually a lot of fun to fly and very responsive. It surprised me. Now, temperatures were good, so I had zero issues on that battery. And then huge shout out to Great Hobbies here in Ottawa for the Zod reviews. Zod, not Zod, Zod. There's the Drift and the Dart, and there's and they came along with 2 of those lithium ion packs, so that'll be multiple flights, and we'll put FPV gear into that, and then the Dart will get a return to home module from them as well, from the Zod collection. So that is pretty incredible and really going to be a lot of fun. So stay tuned to all that. All right, so everybody who's still hanging out in the show, thanks. It's been a lot of fun. I'll start to wrap up and throw some music in there, and we'll end this podcast, and we've managed to almost talk for 90 minutes. So that's pretty darn incredible. Again, huge shout out to Ali for coming on from Horizon Hobby. I'm going to try and make sure we keep getting little stuff, and we'll see if we can get some product developers in from eFlight and everything, because there's a bunch of really cool stuff going down in the future. I'm on a lot, but I'm just thinking of what else is. So we're going to try and get Sam on the show, a couple of the other guys, talk to everybody we talked about last week. Thanks for all the comments. Thanks for all the subscribers and everything. It's been interesting, and everybody stay positive. Happy birthday, Eddie Black, and have a lot of fun. Thanks for coming out and hanging out with me, and we'll talk to you on the next episode. I'm Andre Russo. You're listening to podcast number 86 of the RC After Hours podcast. Thanks for listening. Yeah, that was a lot of fun, everybody. Just wrapped up the recording end of it anyhow. We'll stop the stream here in a couple of minutes. But yeah, thanks, guys. It's been a super week. Really nice to be out of the COVID restrictions for the next little while. Fingers crossed we hold on. Let me bring up the chat here. Click. There we go. Yeah, that hair. Yes. I really got to get a haircut. This is getting a little crazy, but whatever. It's one less thing to worry about right now. But yes, I flew Tuesday this week. So whatever, middle of February. Tuesday, the restrictions were lifted, and I got out on Wednesday and went flying, and then managed to fly today, which was great. 3 aircraft. I found out that the Defiant Renegade, oh, there it is, will fly minus 1 vertical stab. I clipped a tree while flying FPV. Testing out the new ESCs, the new back and new FPV, which was a lot of fun. I tried to recover out of the tree and it didn't work out, so I'll have to glue that back on. And then that little mini Mustang is over on the other side of the room, so you can't show that. That was a lot of fun, very responsive. So up next, I've got to do the Hobby King, the H King Corsair, which I think, based on how the Mustang handled the gravel and everything that's all in the parking lot, I think it'll be thrown. And so we'll see from there. John, you had to answer that hard question. So John's asking about Ohio for Flight Fest. I'm not sure. I will be able to go down, to be honest. The border restrictions when I'm going to be able to get my my COVID vaccine really makes that question hard to answer. As it stands right now, I don't think I'm going to be able to get a vaccine until the fall or full round. And obviously, given my my situation, I'm high risk. So right now, the borders are closed to non-essential travel. So technically, me going down isn't cool. And then coming back, I'd have to have a COVID test and be negative before I can get across. And then I've got to self-isolate for 2 weeks. So as it stands right now, I don't know what the answer is. So the announcement caught me off guard. I wasn't aware that it was going to be announced. So I don't know. Everything's up in the air right now. So it is a little bit mixed emotions. It kind of took me by surprise on Friday. So those trees will reach out and grab you. Oh yes. The trees are indeed. Sorry, the trees are indeed. We can smuggle me in. You know what? If you can smuggle me in, someone can smuggle my plane out for me so I can go flying. So, all right, ladies and gentlemen, it is 9:30 on a Sunday night, and we all have to work tomorrow morning, unfortunately. So, thanks everybody who joined in live. This show actually did pretty darn good as far as people watching, so it's good. The channel keeps to grow, the podcast continues to grow, and I'm looking feeling a lot more optimistic about 2021. So okay, enough of me talking. Everybody, thanks for watching. We'll see you later. If you have any questions or comments or everything, feel free to email me or reach me over any kind of instant messaging and everything. So all right, thank you, have a good night.